My name is Abdalhaqq Bewley. I was born in London and was brought up and went to school in Sussex. My parents were both English. I have now been a Muslim for more than 40 years. I would like to address the present extremely disturbing situation by saying firstly that every right-thinking person must be absolutely appalled by the senseless and brutal crime committed by these two deranged young men in their savage attack on this defenseless soldier, and condemn it utterly. It must also be categorically stated that there is no justification whatsoever in Islam for this horrendous act of violence, whatever claims they may have made. It is quite clear that these two men are suffering from serious mental illness. Their actions and subsequent behavior would seem to indicate severe schizophrenia. They must be given a thorough psychiatric examination and the conclusions of that examination made public so that everyone, both Muslims and non-Muslims, will be made aware of what really provoked this outrage. As has been reported, a large number of unwarranted knee-jerk attacks against mosques and Muslims have already occurred in the wake of this horrific event. And David Cameron's eventual measured and conciliatory language, coming as it did only subsequently to his initial reaction of calling it an act of Islamic terrorism, in fact did little to help the situation. Indeed, as cogently argued by Glenn Greenwald in a recent Guardian article, was the London killing of a British soldier terrorism? There is considerable doubt as to whether this dreadful crime could be called terrorism at all. This stands in contrast to the London mayor's unhesitating clarity and presence of mind in separating the tragedy from both the religion of Islam and the actions of British forces abroad. Of course, David Cameron is quite right to emphasize the positive contribution made by British Muslims to the life of our country. In fact, I would say that the Muslims in Britain now have the potential in the present time of playing the same kind of role in our country today as George Fox and his Quakers did in the 18th century and John Wesley and his Methodists did in the 19th. And ill-judged reactions to recent events should not be allowed to cast any doubt upon the beneficial effects of their presence now and in the years ahead. It is as senseless to attack Muslims and their institutions for what these madmen did, as it would have been for the Norwegians to attack Christian churches and organizations for the murderous rampage of the psychopath Anders Breivik, who claimed that he slaughtered 77 young men and women as part of a Christian crusade. It would be equally ridiculous to attack Catholic churches and organizations in retaliation for outrages perpetrated by a few IRA terrorists. And without in any way detracting from the horrific nature of this murder, is it not fair to ask, in the light of the present furore, why the equally abhorrent murder in the open street of a 75-year-old Muslim man as he was returning peacefully from the mosque one evening earlier this month received so little media coverage and certainly no condemnation as an act of terrorism? Another thing it is absolutely essential to emphasize, in spite of those elements in the media and the world of politics who want to make it appear otherwise, is that Islam can now no longer be considered as something foreign to the UK. Such people always refer to Islam and Muslims explicitly or implicitly as being from over there, from somewhere else. This fails to recognize that during the past few decades, upwards of 100,000 indigenous British men and women have become Muslims, and a much greater number of Muslims originating from other parts of the world have since become ordinary, law-abiding British men and women. Since this terrible event, allegations have been made that these kinds of attack are somehow connected to converts to Islam, that converting to Islam in some way makes people more likely to act in this way. As a Muslim convert myself, and as an early member of the first community in this country to be made up almost entirely of a large number of converts to Islam, I can state categorically that this assertion is absolutely unfounded. There are estimated to be at least 5,000 converts to Islam in Britain every year. And, as Leon Mosavi said about them in another enlightening Guardian article on Friday, almost all of them embrace Islam after being inspired by its monotheistic clarity, its moral guidance, and its holistic framework. The number of those associated with these criminal acts can be counted on the fingers of one hand, and to suggest in the light of the huge number of British Muslim converts that this has any statistical significance is absurd. In any large group of people, it is certain that there will be a tiny minority of violent criminals, and I am sure that the percentage of these within the population as a whole is far greater than that to be found within the Muslim convert community. Radicalization of the extreme kind demonstrated in this case has absolutely nothing to do with Islam at all. It is rather a psychological problem, or you might say a personality disorder. A certain type of person is prone to radicalization of this kind. It doesn't matter whether the cause concerned is animal rights, or the extreme right, or the extreme left, or indeed Islam. They are simply looking for anything in which their extremist tendencies can be expressed, and it just depends on what they're exposed to. At an earlier time, for instance, it was Baader Meinhof or the Red Brigades that attracted this type of personality and provided an outlet for this type of extreme violent behavior. The truth is that, like it or not, Islam and Muslims are now ineluctably part of the social and religious fabric of these islands. People who attack mosques and other Islamic institutions are in fact attacking their own countrymen. This must be understood. Anyone who has any real knowledge of Islam or any genuine experience of the company of Muslims knows that the benign reality of Islam is something totally different from the false image of it portrayed in such a negative light by certain sections of the media and by others whose political agenda is served by such a perception.